Well, folks, if you've been watching this, our harvest videos all this fall, you probably think we had a record year, and well, we had a very good year. But how exactly good of a year did we have? How does it compare to previous years? But the more important question is, how much money did we make from each of our crops? Which crop performed the best and made us the most money? Which crop performed the worst and made us the least amount of money? What crop might we be planting this next year based on what we learned this year? All these questions we're going to answer in this video, so stay tuned. Right after the intro, we'll dive right into it. All right, guys. Well, I was planning on doing this video out in the field, have a little bit more scenic backdrop and everything, but we've got a wind chill hovering right there around 0, and I just don't think it'd be too pleasant to make a video outside. So this is going to be an office video. Going to show a lot of spreadsheets, going to show a lot of data. Really going to break down, get down to the nitty gritty of how our farm performed this previous year. Yeah, we had a good year, but just how good was it? I'm going to show you all the facts, all the figures, show you some historical comparisons and everything, just so you as a viewer have an idea of, what kind of profit potential there is in raising row crops, also what kind of risk there is, what kind of cost there is. Going to be a lot of stuff in this video that you're really going to have a hard time finding anywhere else. We're really going to dive down into the weeds and break it all down for you. All right, we're going to start with the first crop that we harvested this year, which would be winter wheat, which we harvested in June. And out of the 4 main crops that we grow, it was perhaps the most disappointing out of all of them. Now, it wasn't a bad year by our standards by any means on wheat, but it was kind of middle of the road. We had average yields, but anyway, on 414 acres, we produced 33,104 bushels, gave us an average yield of right there around 80 bushels per acre. Now, I know we've got some bunch of foreign viewers, people overseas, people that utilize the metric system, which I hate, but they have asked me to do some conversions on what our yields are compared to the terms that they do. So anyway, I'm going to provide that for these crops, but 80 bushels per acre on our wheat yield equates to 5.38 tons per hectare. If I did my conversions correctly, 5.38 tons per hectare is what we made on wheat. Don't really know how that compares to yields across the pond, but that's what we made. Yields were pretty consistent across the board. We did have one high yield of 108 bushels per acre on one farm. For whatever reason, it was absolutely phenomenal. And then our lowest yield was 71.45 bushels per acre on another farm that's got a lot of tree lines and is typically shaded. But even though we had kind of middling yields on there, we had by far the highest price we've ever sold wheat for. We averaged $8.37 a bushel across the scale on wheat, which was absolutely fantastic. And then looking at historical yields, if you look at this chart, 2023, it's right there about average, maybe slightly below average. Our wheat yields for year in, year out are perhaps the most consistent. But if you look 2 years ago, we had our best wheat yield ever at right around 100 bushels an acre. But we just had absolutely phenomenal weather for wheat. For whatever reason, we had an extended, cooler growing season in May, which kind of hurt my spring crop some, but made for a fantastic wheat crop. And then this year we got more normal, warmer temperatures there during grain filling wheat, which it was one of the things that kind of brought wheat yield down a little bit. I also think we were a little bit lacking on nitrogen also, but that's we've been producing wheat since 2006 every single year. 2007 we had a severe late Easter freeze there. Really caused those yields to be low, but other than that, I really like to average about 85 bushels per acre on wheat, so we were a little below that this year, but overall decent crop. All right, next what we harvested was corn. This year we grew 493 acres of corn. We produced 84,382 bushels off those acres, which gave us a final yield of 171.23 bushels per acre. That equates to 10.74 tons per hectare for you metric folks. And our overall final average is a little bit lower than kind of what maybe the impression I was given while we were harvesting. A big reason for that is, once our grain shrunk in the grain bins as we were drying it down, we lost that moisture weight, and that was one of the reasons that the yield's a little bit lower. Also, not all of our grain was able to get to the perfect 15% moisture, so we took a little bit of a dock on probably about 5 or 6 truckloads. So we take a few more bushels off that. Then we had the corn. Then we had the corn maize added in there also, which brought yields down. But our highest yield was decal variety 6999, came in at 208 bushels per acre. It was on some hill ground, pretty productive hill ground, but still, we didn't have any corn on our best ground this year. We did have corn on some good ground, but what I wouldn't consider our best corn growing ground. But we did have quite a bit of corn on more marginal land, but this year was a perfect year for it. Our lowest yield came in at 158 bushels per acre on one of those really marginal farms, a lot of thin hill soil. So 158 bushels per acre on that I was plumb tickled with it. It was fantastic. Overall, our most consistent performing variety was probably Pioneer 1464. It didn't come in with a highest farm average, but it was consistently well up there in the top third. Of course, it was on some of our a little bit better ground also. Anyway, going back looking at history, where does our 171 bushels per acre compare to with what we've done in the past as far as top yields? If you look at our historical chart here, we've been growing corn since 2002 every year except for 2006 when we planted all milo instead of corn. 2023 was our 5th best ever year, and the 2 years above that, which would be 2021 and 2017, were just marginally better by like a bushel or two than 2023. And then 2019 and 2014 were both just outstanding corn years, plenty of moisture. Plus I had corn on a lot of my better ground those years as opposed to this year. So overall, really tickled. Just another couple bushels per acre, and it would have been the 3rd best year we've ever had, and really happy with it. What I'm not happy with it is my marketing abilities on corn. We still haven't sold all of our corn. It's all been delivered, and we took an advance on the portion that we haven't sold. But hoping price is going to go up here first part of January, but it's just not doing it. I still hope to average right there around between $4.90 and $5 a bushel. If I had done a lot better on my marketing game and sold a lot more earlier in the year, we definitely could have averaged well over $5 per bushel. But I flat out screwed up. I didn't pull the trigger, and we're paying the price for it now. But I'm hoping, somewhere around that $4.95, $5 a bushel is what we're going to wind up averaging for the corn crop when it's all said and done. Next crop up that we harvested, we got our full season soybeans. Now we didn't have a whole lot of acres. We only planted 138 acres of full season soybeans, mainly because we only plant full season soybeans on the ground that we can't plant wheat on because it's bottom ground and more wetter natured. But we when we were cutting those full season beans, man, I was just blown away by how good they were. And when everything was said and done, we had the best year we've ever had on soybeans. On that 138 acres, we produced 10,501 bushels. Comes out to 76.3 bushels per acre. Our highest yield was almost 83 bushels per acre. And then our lowest yield was 65 bushels per acre. And on that farm, we had some water damage. They kind of had some drowned out spots. It was a real small farm. And then the next one above that came in at 71 bushels per acre. We had a whole bunch of deer damage around the edges of the fields. Out in the middle, it was 90 bushels all day all day long, but that deer damage around the edges really took the top end off that. Otherwise, I believe we would have topped the 80 bushel per acre mark. For my metric friends out there, that equates to a yield of 5.14 tons per hectare on our soybean yield. We only had one variety, Pioneer 48A14E, enlist variety. Absolutely love that variety, top yielder. Definitely want to plant it again next year. But how does that compare with previous years? Well, I've already said that it was our best year ever on soybeans. And then if you look at this chart, it's got both our full season soybean yields, which is the blue line, and then it's also got our double crop soybean yields, which is the green line. We grew a few acres of soybeans back in the late 70s and early 80s, then took a big break there until the year 2001 when we planted all 100% cotton. Then we started rotating back in. You can see how our soybean yields have steadily climbed, but look there at 2023, that's number one. Although we did have a couple of real close contenders. 2018 had an excellent year, averaged over 70 bushels an acre. Looks like maybe 172 bushels per acre. And then 2014, a fantastic growing season 2014. All the grains did well, and it was like we averaged about 74 bushels per acre there. So we were definitely a couple bushels per acre above those years. But you can see, kind of, you look at the line, you know, the trend line is definitely up. We're getting better growing soybeans, getting better varieties out there, and just doing a better overall job of managing. So hopefully, you know, we get the right weather. You know, maybe that won't be the best yield we've ever made. Maybe we'll be able to top that again soon here in the next few years. Now going on to a crop that probably a lot of y'all not familiar with, cotton. I kind of take it for granted that everybody knows about cotton because, well, it's what I grew up with my whole life. But really, you go a state or two north of where we're at, like cotton is a completely foreign animal to a lot of other people. I guess it's like peanuts would be to me, or sugar cane would be to me. You know, just, I mean, you know, you wear it, but you don't know anything about growing it, about what yields are, or anything like that. So we're going to talk a little bit extra about cotton. But y'all saw us pick that cotton with our new baler picker this year. I mean, it was an absolutely phenomenal cotton crop, and it shouldn't have been because we had to replant about 80% of our crop. And, you know, we're at almost the most northern latitude that cotton is grown at. So we have to plant extremely short season varieties. Otherwise, we run the risk of our crop not maturing out. And with us having to replant our crop at a later than ideal date, we should not have done what we did this year on cotton. But the real reason why we did so great on all of our crops was sunshine. Sunshine was the key. Yeah, we had a pretty dry year, but we had just the right amount of rain at just the right time. And normally when it rained at night. So it was sunny the day that it rained, and then it was also sunny the day after it rained, and we didn't get hardly any cloud cover. So that extra sunlight really made a big difference this year. And then just getting just the right amount of rain at the nick of time really helped out too. We did have some warm late season temperatures there in August and September that really helped the cotton mature on out, really set those top bolls, which really led towards a big yield. But our overall final average on cotton was 1,303 pounds per acre. For you metric guys, I don't exactly know if y'all use tons per hectare, but I figured it up. It's 1.46 tons per hectare. If you figure bales per acre, that equates to 2.71 bales per acre, figuring on a 480 pound bale. Cotton is usually expressed several different ways, just depending on what region you're from. So 1,304 pounds per acre, 2.71 bales per acre, or 1.46 tons per hectare. Now that's lint weight. That's not seed cotton. That is just strictly lint weight. But our highest yield was the first farm that we harvested, the one we didn't have to replant, came in at 1,116 pounds per acre. Our lowest yield came in at 1,041 pounds per acre, and that's my low input field that we don't fertilize, just extremely low inputs, just seeing what we can do. So it made respectable yields. It was also that Thrive on cotton, and you know, it's like I said during harvest, the Thrive on cotton, while it performed a lot better than the yield monitor was showing, overall it doesn't quite perform as well as my Bogart 3 or my Wide Strike 3 varieties perform. So, but cotton just absolutely blew us away. And then not only was the yield good on cotton, the fiber quality was out of this world. I think on most of our cotton, we averaged about a 5 cent per pound premium on all of our seed. And that's because from the time that the cotton opened and was ready to be harvested, it didn't hardly receive any kind of rainfall. So we got a premium fiber quality. And we haven't received all the income for our cotton because we market our cotton through a marketing cooperative called Staple Cotton. And anyway, they give us a big advance payment in the fall after our cotton's in, and then they give us 5 more payments throughout the next year as they market our cotton. You know, might be a 1 to 2 cent per pound payments there. But anyway, so far we've received 79 cents per pound for our cotton. That's the advance plus 1 payment, you know, plus the fiber quality, and then plus checks from the gin for the module allowance and the seed checks that we get from the gin. We've got, right now, we've received about 79 cents per pound, and I expect to receive probably another 9 to 10 cents per pound before, you know, whenever we receive our final check in September. So this is kind of projections right now. But you know, where does that cotton yield compare historically? Well, you look at that trend line chart. I mean, look all the way over on the right. It's definitely the highest yield on that chart. Our second highest yield was 2019. Had a hair over 1,200 pounds per acre. So we're almost 100 pounds per acre higher than we've ever made before. And then if you look just a couple years back, you see that dip right there in the chart. 2021 did not have a good cotton crop that year. Looked like we were going to, but there in late July, we had a pretty severe storm with about some 70 to 80 mile winds come through there when the cotton was fruiting, and those winds stressed the cotton plant real bad, and it chunked a lot of fruit off right there, which really led to the lower yield. Then looking back a little bit farther back, 2007, you see another terrible dip. That was the major drought in 2007 that we had. But you know, our family's been built on cotton, and we've got cotton records going all the way back to 1977 there. So pretty interesting chart. I will do another video later on sometime, diving a little bit more into the historical yield analysis and how the trends have been on our farm on getting better yields, and you know, the acres we've grown, the pounds we produced, even the varieties that we've used. How many bushels has each variety produced for us over the years? You know, well, I'll dive off into that, and it ought to be a pretty interesting video. All right, last crop need to talk about, double crop soybeans. Again, while I was cutting those double crop soybeans, I was just blown away by how good they were. And we didn't hardly get any rain there in September when they were maturing out. If we'd gotten one more rain there in September, there's no telling what they would have done. But anyway, we come in with an average yield on 414 acres of double crop soybeans of 56.42 bushels per acre. And I thought that was going to be a record for us, but actually it wasn't. You look back there in 2021, we had I think we had an average of about 57 bushels per acre that year, so just a shade higher. So 2023 was the second best double crop soybean year we've ever had, but I mean, it's been absolutely fantastic. And right now, currently, we're hauling our soybeans. They haven't all been sold, but I hope to have a final average price of somewhere around $13.55 per bushel. Anyway, for my metric friends, that 56.42 bushels per acre equals to 3.8 tons per hectare. Anyway, and on those beans, we had a high yield field average of almost 68 bushels per acre. And then we had that one field, if you remember on that last harvest video, had a real thin stand. It came in at 34 bushels per acre. It was definitely an anomaly when, you know, the next lowest yield come in at right there at 53 bushels per acre. So there was a 20 bushel difference between our lowest field and our next lowest field. So Same variety, planted the same time, but for whatever reason had a thin stand and it just did not perform. But that same field that we had the lowest double crop soybean yield on had by far the best wheat yield. So, maybe we just had too much straw down there, but my planter is equipped to handle all that straw. So really don't know why that happened, but I thought that was kind of strange. All right, now to get to the part that y'all probably most interested in. How much money did you make? And this is going to be the pretty interesting part. So we're looking at the spreadsheet. We'll start out with corn here. Corn was my least profitable crop. Even though we had a great year, it was our least profitable crop. Anyway, I got this broke down to different shares according to however you rent your ground. You look at the 100% column, that's going to be owned ground or cash rented ground. Now, I haven't taken the cash rent into account on here because it's going to be completely different. It's going to be different on a lot of my farms. It's going to be different on your farms, anybody else's farms. So that's just kind of something that if you want to kind of figure how it relates to you, you need to subtract whatever your cash rent values are. And then obviously if you own the land, there is no cash rent deducted out of the 100% tab. The 2/3 and 1/3 tab is where the landlord gets 1/3 of all income off the land, and I get 2/3 of all income off the land. But the key difference in here is that the landlord actually shares in some of the expenses on that farm of some of the expenses to actually put the crop in, like fertilizer, lime, insecticides, fungicides, that sort of thing. It does share in 1/3 of all the expenses, just a portion of some of them. And then the other type of lease agreement that we offer is an 80/20, where a landlord gets 20% of all income, but they don't have to pay any kind of expenses. And then I got a couple old 75%, 25%, but that I don't currently offer that to new landlords, just because there's just very little profit margin in it for me, and it's just not worth it to me. However, all the landlords I got to transition to 80/20 have been extremely happy. They say that I make them more income than the previous farmer did, so really pleased about that. But we kind of got our leases structured to where the more risk that a landlord is willing to take on, the more profit potential they should get. Just for instance, if they want cash rent for their ground, well, they're not accepting any risk at all. The only risk to them is if I don't pay them at the end of the year, which I'm going to pay them. So that's their only risk. Whereas 2/3 and 1/3 landlords, they're taking on the most risk because they're sharing in the expenses, and also they're sharing in the most percentage of crop. If we have a crop failure, it's definitely a lot more risk on their plate. Whereas the 80/20 landlords, they're sharing in some risk of the crop production, but they're not sharing in the risk of any of the expenses. So that's kind of how I got my leases tailored. The more risk a landlord is willing to take on, the more profit potential that they're going to have off their farm. But anyway, after that brief explanation, I only had corn on either ground I owned, ground I cash rented, or the ground that had was on 2/3 or 1/3 lease. And you can see the different yields, average yields for both those farms. On my owned ground and cash rented ground, we averaged 166 bushels per acre at $4.95. That gives a gross income of $821.50 per acre. And then what it cost us on those farms to actually put in the crop, just the crop inputs, your seed, fertilizer, lime, chemicals, that kind of stuff, totaled up to $415. And then you subtract that out, that leaves us with a net profit of $406 per acre. Pretty nice. Now then, if you're cash rent, you got to subtract the cash rent out of that to get your net profit. Then on the 2/3, 1/3 ground, a little bit better ground, we averaged 176 bushels per acre on those farms. But 2/3 of the income is mine, 1/3 is the landlord, so our income is $481 per acre. And then if you look at our expenses, because the landlord's sharing in some of the expenses, our expenses are also lower and came in at $309 per acre. Leaves us net profit of $272 per acre. All right, let's go on to full season soybeans right here. See, we got 137 acres there, and we had soybeans on cash rented ground, 2/3 and 1/3 ground, and then 80/20 leased ground. Our cash rent ground, 100%, had our lowest yields. I'm figuring in an average price of $13.55, which is where I hope to be. Gives us gross income of $886 per acre. Our expenses on that farm, what it cost us to put in an acre of full season beans, about $188 per acre, leaves us net profit of almost $700 per acre. But again, those are great yields, very, very good price. 2/3, 1/3, we averaged 81 bushels per acre on that farm. And then, we get less gross income because we got to share a third with the landlord. Our expenses are a little bit less because the landlord shares the expenses, and then it leaves us with net profit of $584 per acre. And then 80/20, where I pay all the expenses, but I only get 80% of the income, 71 bushels per acre, gave us a net profit of $614 per acre. Soybeans did very well, but we had quite a bit higher than average yields for soybeans. So we bring that back down to more of a normal year. Soybeans still look great, but they don't look quite as good as the next two crops that I'm going to show you. Now, looking at our cotton, like I said, I hope to average about 89 cents per pound, and we had cotton on owned and cash rented ground. We had it on 2/3, 1/3 share ground, and we also had it on 75-25% ground. So, our yield on our cash rented and owned ground came in at 1,264 pounds per acre. After subtracting expenses of almost $400 per acre, leaves us with a net profit of about $728 per acre. We had our highest yields on the land that was shared 2/3 and 1/3. And after subtracting expenses, because the landlord's sharing quite a few expenses on cotton. We do a lot of spraying, especially for insecticides that they share in on. Our cost on that was $294 per acre, leaves us net profit of $505 per acre. Then you look at the 75-25, they don't pay for any expenses, and I'm giving up 25% of the income to the landlord, leaves us with a net profit of $384 per acre. So, you can see I'm just not a big fan of the 75-25. I'm a lot more comfortable with the 80/20, and the landlords on 80/20s, they can still make a really nice profit on that type of lease agreement. So cotton made us a good bit of money this year. Now on to the biggest money maker. This is why we plant a bunch of wheat, and this is why almost all of our soybeans are double crop, because of the profit potential on a wheat double crop soybean in 1 year rotation. Like I said, wheat was slightly below average on yields, fantastic price. You can see the charts there. Owned and cash rented ground, we had $400 net profit on the wheat crop. 2/3 and 1/3, I had $250 net profit. 80/20, you had $272 net profit. And if wheat was the only crop we grew on there, that wouldn't look too good. I really wouldn't grow wheat, but then you look at the double crop soybeans, our second crop on that same piece of ground. Great yields on that too, really good price. On the 100% share, 51.28 bushels per acre, only $109 per acre expenses on putting that crop in. Leaves a very, very nice profit of $586 per acre. 2/3, 1/3, we had a little bit higher yield. Our expenses were just a little bit less. Leaves us with a net profit of $428. And then 80/20, extremely high yields. We're right there at that $109, $110 per acre input cost again, and leaves us with $527 per acre now. But who really shines on this scenario is the landlord, who's on a 2/3, 1/3 share, because there's very few expenses that a landlord has to pay for in a double crop scenario. Typically, they only pay a third of the fungicide or an insecticide if we apply it. And, and then I pretty much cover the rest of the cost. So the landlord really makes out good in this type of scenario. But anyway, you add those two crops together on the owned and cash rented ground, net profit $986 per acre. Just mind blowing. Then 2/3, 1/3, add them both together, very, very nice $676 per acre. And then on the 80/20, comes in at right at $800 per acre. That, folks, that's why we grow a lot of wheat and a lot of double crop soybeans, because it flat out pays the bills. Some people might say, well, you kind of got double the risk. You got two chances to have a major screw up, and yeah, you can. But our wheat yields, as you saw, are very consistent. Unless we have a terribly late freeze, our wheat yields are very consistent. And so far, our double crop soybeans have been pretty dang consistent also. So wheat and double crop soybeans, definitely our number one money making crop, and it has been for quite a while. The other crops can kind of flip flop. Cotton is typically our number two revenue producing crop as far as net profit. And then corn. Corn sometimes will flip flop with cotton. Say we have a bad year in cotton, but a good year in corn, which typically is what happens. It's very rare that we have a good corn crop and a good cotton crop in the same year, just because the weather patterns that each crop likes is really quite different. We just kind of got lucky this year. And then typically full season soybeans brings up the tail. However, it came in at it kind of fluctuated between our second and third most money-making crop this year, but like I said, we had an exceptional soybean yield. You take just a few bushels per acre off that yield, bring us back down to normal. It definitely comes in at number 3 on our list. So that's why we don't put a lot of acres in full season soybeans, because we make a lot more money on wheat and double crop soybeans. Now, after looking at all those numbers, she's thinking, man, y'all farmers are rich. Why is so many of y'all complaining about you don't ever make no money, anything, acting like you're poor and everything? Now, those profit numbers that I showed you, that's not our final profit. That's after subtracting our input costs, the inputs we actually apply to the crop. We've still got the cost of running a business, what we call overhead cost, and this is a number that's going to be completely different for every farm, just depending on their equipment situation, employees, their business structure is going to be completely different. But on average, our overhead costs typically run between $300 to $400 per acre. That's labor, insurance, fuel, equipment payments, repair and maintenance, all the costs associated with running a business that are not directly related to seed, fertilizer, chemicals, and everything else. It's very expensive to run a business. We try to do our best to minimize those costs, but just like this year, our overhead costs are going to be higher than what they normally are, because, well, we had the module picker. We had to sink a lot of money into that module picker, not only getting it ready for the season, but then in season with service calls and repairs and stuff. Hopefully we got it in good shape, and next year our overhead costs can return back to normal. But subtract another $300 to $400 an acre in our case from those net profits, and you quickly see that we're really close to getting into the red. And in some cases, even with a good year, on some farms with some lease agreements, we're already in the red once you subtract those overhead costs. That's one reason farmers kind of try to increase their acreage, because a lot of those overhead costs are fixed, but the more acres you can spread them across, the lower your cost per acre comes out to, and then you can be more profitable on paper. So again, every farm is going to be completely different in that category. A lot of us might be kind of similar with the input cost, but the overhead cost is going to vary wildly from farm to farm to farm. So what are we going to plant this coming up year? We're going to plant kind of the same thing. We're going to try and keep about a third of our acres in corn, third of our acres in cotton, and then a third of our acres in wheat and double crop soybeans, with a few scattered full season soybeans in there. Just mainly because I have no idea what the price is going to do this year. I kind of got a rough idea of what input's going to cost, but as you saw, cotton and corn, they both kind of cost about the same amount of money to grow, at least for us. Other operations might be different. We're extremely low input on our crop inputs. We try to spend as little money as possible and then build up our soils to handle a lot of the other things. So our input costs are probably a little bit lower than what the average row crop farmer spends, and we're looking at ways to cut that down every other year, and so far we've been very successful with it. You know, we don't know what the price is going to do for this coming year. We sure as heck don't know what the weather's going to do this year. And even though corn doesn't look very good for this year, especially the way the price is turning, you know, what I project in January never, ever, ever comes to fruition come the fall when it comes time to cash the checks. Something unexpected happens, and you know, I know in years past, you know, corn didn't look that good. I still planted it just to kind of spread my risk around, and it wound up actually making me the most money, maybe because of weather favored corn. Maybe we had a drought late season after the corn had already matured that hurt my other crops, but my corn was already made, and we wound up harvesting a pretty good crop of corn. So seen that happen several times. So I never put all my eggs in one basket. We never try to hit a home run on this farm, because most times when you try to hit a home run, you're gonna swing and you're gonna miss. I'd much rather hit a single or hit a double, and you know, that's going to win us the ball game most of the time. When you try to be consistent and steady and not shoot for the moon on trying to make profit, because the last thing we want to do is go broke. So anyway, guys, I know that's kind of been a long video, a lot of in-depth, a lot of nitty-gritty stuff. I know some of y'all out there will appreciate really diving down into the figures, and just gives you a little bit better perspective as what us as farmers, as business people, are looking at when we're trying to make our decisions for the upcoming year. You know, in reality, there's so much of our job that we cannot control. We really try to be particular about the things that we can control, but ultimately, this time of year when I'm making decisions that's going to take us throughout the year, what I'm going to plant and how much of each crop I'm going to plant, it's just a guessing game. We do the best we can, but we try to follow the laws of averages, because that's going to reliably give us our best decisions. You know, we try to spread our risk around, we try to minimize our input cost, and then just see what the year has in store for us. So I know every year that we've been on YouTube, we've been throwing some pretty big curveballs every single year, and I have no doubt that 2024 will be any different. But we're in a good position financially to handle it, and hopefully the good Lord won't throw us anything that we can't handle. So anyway, guys, hope y'all appreciate this video. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Y'all be sure to hit that like button. And also want to bring to attention another farming channel that y'all might enjoy. I started following this young farmer from North Carolina here the last few months, towards the tail end of his harvest. I found his channel, started watching it, and the guy really reminds me a lot of myself earlier on in my career. He's a real young farmer, starting out with not much of anything and really trying to make a go of it at farming, not scared to tackle any project on the farm. You know, just trying to build up his equipment lineup and everything, and really takes a lot of pride in what he does, and I think he's really doing a great job. But anyway, y'all go check out, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I don't know if it's Ruth or Ralph Farms, Routh. Y'all be sure to look him up on YouTube, give him a like, try to get him up over 1,000 subscribers. I really think his channel's got a whole lot of promise, and this one I really enjoy watching myself. So anyway, guys, y'all go check out his channel, and I appreciate y'all watching this video, and we'll be back soon. We'll see you in the next one.